Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. So 3.8 has graced us with another new Abyss 12, and in this video we're going to be going through the strategy that I came up with for a pretty reasonable clear, as well as talking about some challenges and difficulties about this Abyss 12. Now, unfortunately, I did try for, honestly, quite a long time with just 4-star characters and 4-star, teams and everything. But unfortunately, although I came kind of close to 3-starring both 12-1 and 12-2, eventually I decided, well, with the amount of effort that this is taking and the amount of, optimization and tries I had to do, it just really wasn't worth it. If it really takes that much effort with really cracked gear, I don't really consider it a viable or good strategy. So instead I caved and did use one 5-star character. There's one 5-star character that really honestly makes this Abyss 12 super duper easy in comparison, because you will see how the enemies spawn, and that's what is the biggest issue honestly in the second half of Abyss 12. Now, let's go ahead and start taking a look at the run that I did with Nahida in the second half. Now, I built Nahida with just pure elemental mastery and the Deepwood memories. My Nahida is effectively playing as a Constellation 2 Nahida, so she will get that defense shred, but when I use 5-star characters like that, I always try to clear with plenty of time left on the clock. So anyway, we can see here that we start off with the international team with Xingqiu, Bennett, Sucrose, and Xiangling, and these characters all have 4-star weapons with their typical stuff. And at the very beginning, I find that I don't like using Sucrose's burst because it spreads these little doggos out way too much. I find that the damage amplification is more useful against the second wave, and really here you want to focus down the Pyro Abyss Lecter as fast as possible. That way it will pop up its Pyro Shield, and you will be able to slowly but surely chip away at its Pyro Shield, while the big dogs just charge at you and get destroyed by Xiangling's Pyronado and any other DPS that you're throwing at the Pyro Abyss Lecter. You can also see that I intentionally had Xingqiu's elemental skill hit one of the big dogs while hitting the Pyro Abyss Lecter. That way, Sacrificial Sword will activate. So 12-2 is really where Nahida shines, and it's not too evident with the very first wave, but you'll see as additional waves come. And I highly recommend a Dendro and Electro character for the second half, due to the fact that you will fight a lot of these Dorito bots. Well, okay, more so just Simon. And this team, I decided to use a meme team as well, just to demonstrate how even with a meme team, as long as you have Nahida, things will be good. So the meme team here is Dori provides Electro Infusion for Sayu to easily apply Electro onto herself, and therefore Sayu can just constantly swirl like crazy against the enemies and activate a ton of Fischl's Ascension, whatever, passive that zaps the enemy whenever you do an Electro reaction. And Sayu as well, she heals and she tanks pretty well. You can see she's just melting through the enemies with this build. One of my personal favorite builds, and you also see there's actually some pragmatism to using Sayu like this. And also, full disclosure, this is literally my first attempt with a Nahida team in comparison to literally trying for a couple hours with 4-star only teams. Nahida really just completely trivializes this in comparison to pretty much any other character that you could bring. So if you do have her, I highly recommend using her in the second half. We can see that those Hydro Hilichurl mage dudes with the scythes, they spawn super far away from each other on the opposite sides of the map. If you know anything about these guys, they do not like to approach you. So Nahida's map-wide attack is hugely beneficial for taking those guys out in a reasonable amount of time. Okay, so this one, stand at this spot against the Pyro gunslinger guy, and you're able to knock him towards his buddy, where you can easily use a grouping ability like Sucrose in order to group them, or Kazuha. I bet Venti with a certain placement or something could probably suck all of them up, but we can see here that after just grouping the two Pyro gunners together, the rest of it becomes super trivial. And after this, we have 4 of these husk guys. I recommend sticking towards the archer. I think I messed up my rotations a bit here, but you know, I don't think it really matters that much. But yeah, stick near the archer, and the others tend to try to approach you a bit, which is enough for you to have some pretty good AoE. You can see even though the lance guy charged all the way across the map, he is back for some punishing as he runs towards us. And yeah, avoid bringing a shielder. I personally find that once I have a shield and these guys start getting all their buffs from hitting your shields, that becomes a lot more difficult. So that's why the international team here is very, very strong against the bottom half. And we can see now it's just a matter of, well, just letting Xiangling's thing destroy everything along with Xingqiu's burst. And I decided here to just battery my team up. I didn't even decide to, you know, save time by using Xingqiu's burst to finish him off. So anyway, 12-2-2. Oh man. This is Simon, and this is when you really need the Dendro and Electro to knock it out of its invisible form. But we can see the single target DPS on this Sayu build is hilariously pretty good, and the mobility is also really nice. We can tag it with Electro there and pop a swirl as well in order for Nahida's thing to tick on it. And now it's down for the count on the ground, giving you time to, well, obviously wallop it. And I should have used Nahida's burst as well as Fischl's burst in order to refresh their durations, but as you can see, this was again my first attempt where, you know, I literally didn't even practice at all. So there's still plenty of time left on the clock as well, despite all this. And that's kind of my point. Once you bring the right character, in this case Nahida, you're going to have a really, really good time. Now, also, if you don't have Nahida, other Dendro DPS characters, like if you have Tignari or Alhaitham, they will do really well here. Now, unfortunately, Electro struggles a bit because we have a lot of a couple Electro resistance enemies, like the Electro Lava Churl, as well as the enemy in 12-3-2, which we are about to get to. So, 12-3-1, we have a specific positioning that I personally like in order to group them up. You want to be careful of the dancing girl, whatever, Eremite in the back, because she will cast the super long, you know, slowing waters, which is absolutely crippling for characters like Xingqiu and Xiangling to get hit by. So I try to kill her as fast as possible. And then after that, the reason why I also ran over there was that way the Mirror Maiden would spawn on this side, and you being in between with the Mirror Maiden between you as well as this Eremite lady, you can force the Mirror Maiden to go towards the Eremite lady either through her teleporting or through you pushing her back like I did just there. And now we can use Sucrose to suck them all back up in order to just, well, blow them up now with Xiangling's Pyronado. At this point, you know the drill. Once things get rolling, now we just wait, and yeah, there she goes. So you can see the positioning there was important for grouping them up properly. Now, this is one of the harder chambers that we've ever had to date. And if you know these guys, they drain your energy. They're super annoying. They're spaced apart. You can't really group them. But fortunately, Sayu's really fast. So you're able to distribute your damage a bit better with Sayu here in comparison to a lot of other characters that really struggle to hit both of them. And Nahida, obviously, her skill will hit all of them constantly. So that's one of the reasons why Nahida is just so incredibly good, as well as the fact that they do not resist Dendro. These guys, one of them does resist Electro. I think he has 30% Electro resist. It's not a ton, but it's still enough to make their very large HP pools very painful to deal with when you're fighting an enemy that has a lot of additional resistances. So we can see here that I think I'm doing pretty poorly with the rotations, all things considered. I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but either way, we're just going to get Fischl's thing up in time. And I try to focus more on the Bolt Eater with this one fish out, the purple one, because again, because it's resistant to Electro, you're going to have issues with taking it out with this Aggravate team / spread team with Nahida's spread damage. And you really want to focus them down at the same time. The reason why is because you can see the life link between them. If you only kill one of them in about 10, 15, however long seconds, the other one will revive. We can see that the other one's trying to revive, but we managed to take them both down just in time. So let's go ahead and take a look at these two teams' builds. In particular, I really like this Sayu team. Any excuse I have to use Sayu in combat, I do. She is a hilariously fun character to use, and you'll be surprised to see what build she's using. She's using the Rain Slasher, which increases her damage against Electro, which oftentimes the enemies will have Electro because of how much Electro this team is chucking out. And interestingly, she's using a DPS Viridescent Veneer set with some energy recharge. And funnily, I want you guys to see, she has an Electro damage goblet. That's right, because Sayu will do a lot more damage, Electro damage, than Anemo damage in this situation, thanks to Spread. And Sayu is going to be doing, thanks to Aggravate. And she's going to do a lot of aggravates with this build because she swirls, and when she swirls, that also aggravates. So that's why this build was so successful, and honestly, it's pretty good. And we also have our little genie, Dory, who's a bit of a troll character, but really her main purpose here is just to apply more Electro, provide some energy regen with her burst, as well as to do a little bit of aggravate damage herself. I mean, the amount of damage that she does with aggravate is certainly non-negligible, and her burst also tethers to Sayu, which applies Electro to Sayu, which makes it much more reliable and quick in order for Sayu to get the Electro infusion on her spinny Yuhu Art Fuin dash, which is what makes this whole team work. And of course, Nahida is Nahida. You guys should know her well. Her artifacts are mostly an EN build. You can see I have 912 Elemental Mastery with some crit damage, some crit rate, and mostly energy recharge. Well, okay, not mostly, but a good amount of energy recharge. You can look at the individual pieces here. They're pretty good, which is why, you know, I make sure I leave plenty of time on the clock. I think each chamber had roughly 40 extra seconds for you guys to implement these strategies in order to clear them in time. Now, up next is Fischl. We just have a standard stringless Gilded Dreams Fischl with pretty decent artifacts. She's got solid artifacts, and obviously Fischl here is for all the aggravates that trigger, you know, her, this one, Undone by Thy Sinful Hex, is going to activate a lot, and this is where a ton of the damage from the team happens, because Fischl, of course, also has an Elemental Mastery build, and each one of these has no ICD, therefore Fischl is just going to aggravate a ton and do a ton of damage. So let me switch over to the other team, which is the standard national team. You guys should be very familiar with this team. We just have Xingqiu with Sacrificial Sword and the 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fates. We have Bennett with a Sapwood Blade, as well as Noblesse Oblige. Sucrose with Thrilling Tales and Viridescent Veneer. Just as soon as Xiangling's Burst is up, do Bennett's Burst, Sucrose's E or whatever, and then Xiangling's Burst. You guys saw the rotation there. We have Xiangling with standard The Catch, plus the Emblem of Severed Fates. Nothing special with this team. And you can see, though, that this international team, classic version of it, is this called the international team? National team. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. I think I've been calling this wrong the whole time. I believe it's the national team. Child's version is the international team. But even though this team is actually quite international as well, with both Mondstadt, 2 from Mondstadt, 2 from Liyue. But yeah, whatever. Okay. So that wraps up my personal runs for this, and let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about this Abyss 12. So this Abyss 12 was really, really difficult with only 4-star characters. I wasn't able to do it in a few hours, so at which point I decided, hey, I'm just going to give up and cave and use a 5-star character in this case. Well, you see that Nahida really, really almost trivialized it because of how spread out the enemies are, how difficult they are to group. Nahida is the perfect character for dealing with a situation like that. And really, you guys should know how these enemies work by now, but these guys apply corrosion, so healing is very, very welcome, because corrosion is going to chip away at your health really fast, and shields don't protect you from corrosion. Second half, again, you really want an aggravate combination of Dendro and Electro. And you want to avoid shields here because of obviously the Husk guys in the first half. And finally, yeah, I think I talked enough, honestly, about this Abyss 12. In some ways, I think this Abyss 12 is pretty challenging, especially if you don't have Nahida. But other Dendro/spread DPS characters like Alhaitham as well as Tignari will be able to do quite well here, even if they don't quite have the same level of optimization against spread out enemies. You're going to have a good time with spread damage in the second half of Abyss 12, thanks to the Dendro-Electro combination. Okay, so let me know what you think about this Abyss 12. I think this one personally is easier than the previous one, but it's harder than many of the other ones that we've had. to date. I think the reviving 2 Bathismal Vishap guys are pretty obnoxious, but as long as you know what you're dealing with and you distribute the damage evenly, you know, bring both of them near death, you should be able to clear it just fine. Let me know what teams you guys use to clear this Abyss 12. And yeah, as always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Want to Lose, signing out.